My name is Marina Ellis. I was never considered the favorite. That distinction always went to my younger sister, Danielle. From early childhood, she lit up any room with her beaming smile, the sort of kid neighbors would never forget. Our mother, Evelyn Ellis, absolutely doted on her. "She's just like me," Evelyn would declare, resting a hand on Danielle's shoulder as though nobody else mattered. Perhaps to her, nobody else did. I tended to be reserved. Books kept me company. I figured out how to sew even before I learned to ride a bike. Too earnest. That's what my mother would say, neither warmly nor cruelly, but somewhere in between. She would let out a resigned sigh, as though I was a letdown she had come to terms with years ago. Whenever we had friends visit, it was always Danielle whom she proudly presented. I recall a time when I was about 11 and Evelyn was putting together a brunch for her friends from the Oakleaf Society. I watched as she arranged things neatly and even assisted with putting together the fruit platter. When I walked into the living room, she spotted me, gave a rapid wave, and silently mouthed, "Not now." Later on, she told me, "It's just that you're difficult to describe, and I doubt you'd enjoy the conversation anyway." Our father, Thomas Ellis, never caused me to feel excluded like that. My father was more reserved than my mother. He spent over 35 years working as a machinist, a profession that leaves your hands grimy with oil no matter how much you wash them. He was always home for dinner, never missed anyone's birthday, and remained calm without ever raising his voice. He never tried to draw attention to himself, but he noticed everything. When I brought home a flawless grade on a math test, he placed it on our refrigerator. Even when my mother groaned, "Nobody keeps test papers after middle school," she insisted. "It's not adorable anymore." My father simply beamed and let it stay there. He always treated us with a sense of fairness. That sense of fairness was what I clung to. Even when my mother bought my younger sister a new dress for a dance and told me, "Well, you never go to those things," I told myself, "My father loves me just as much." Even after I reached adulthood, not much really shifted. Danielle continued to live as if good fortune was something the world automatically owed her. She held jobs but could never stick with any of them for long. Whenever one ended, my mother always had a reason ready for her. "It just wasn't the right fit," she'd tell people. Or she'd say, "The manager must have been envious." Danielle just grinned, breezed along, and meanwhile I worked hard at slowly, steadily building my profession by myself. I was the first to move out, covered my own rent, handled my vehicle repairs, came back to visit on weekends, and still, each time, I felt like the unexpected guest. My father, however, always noticed when I stopped by. He would turn on the porch light for me. He would have a pot of coffee brewing. He would ask, "How's your job?" And I could tell he truly wanted to know. I never found myself competing to get his attention. He always offered it without hesitation. That was the dynamic in our family. My mother and my younger sister circled each other, vibrant and dazzling, while my father and I existed quietly at the core. I didn't recognize how delicate that equilibrium was until everything shifted. My father retired at 67. He didn't have a celebration. He preferred not to. He simply walked in one Wednesday carrying a cardboard box and some work gloves, announcing, "That's it." In the beginning, I enjoyed seeing him around more often. He built a bird feeder and began tending a modest garden behind our house. When I visited after work, he always had something new to share with me. Nothing extravagant, just simple practical things. That was simply his nature, constantly repairing and always striving to improve whatever he could, even in small ways. Then on a certain morning, he tripped on the back porch steps. It was just 11 centimeters. He clipped his heel on the edge and fell hard, fracturing his hip. Although the operation was quick, his recuperation dragged on for far too long. He tried, but despite undergoing therapy, he never regained his former mobility. He became weaker, drained of strength. In a matter of months, he was largely reliant on a walker, and before long, a wheelchair. Staying still infuriated him. My mother, Evelyn, was even more distressed by it. "He just sits all day," she once muttered, unaware of my presence. "All he does is sit there." Danielle, my younger sister, agreed as she absent-mindedly paged through a magazine. "It's sad. He barely speaks anymore." "Could you really fault him?" I said, standing behind them. They looked up at me, clearly surprised. My mother let out a laugh that sounded forced. "We're not criticizing him. It's simply difficult to witness him like this." Yet they weren't truly looking at him. They kept their distance from him. Small things changed at first. My mother stopped preparing cooked dinners. My younger sister insisted she was too busy. Sensitive matters like assisting with medications or bathing fell to me. Then the glossy travel brochures started appearing. On the kitchen counter, I came across one advertising a luxury resort in Oregon. Spa packages, horseback riding on scenic trails, and wine tastings were highlighted. "It looks appealing," I remarked, holding the brochure up. My mother glanced in my direction. "We're considering a little getaway without Thomas," she said. "Naturally, he can't travel by air in his condition." "So who will stay here with him?" I asked. Evelyn waved her hand as if it were obvious. "I figured it would be you. You're always so capable with situations like this." But they hadn't actually asked. They just expected it. This presumption became a pattern. Outings became more frequent. Dinners, weekend escapes. Sometimes they didn't even let me know. I would often arrive to check on my father, only to find him sitting alone in the living room, the television tuned to golf at a barely audible volume. One evening, I arrived just before Alicia Rowe, the retired nurse we'd employed part-time as a care worker, came through the door. She looked puzzled. "Is anyone else home?" she asked. "No," I replied. "Why, I was told someone would be available to help." I dialed my mother, but she did not pick up. My younger sister sent a text back 90 minutes later. "I'm out having dinner. Can it wait?" That evening, I handled the bathing on my own. Thomas Ellis told me he was sorry for all the hassle. I kept quiet. I couldn't force myself to pretend that everything was all right. Before long, I requested that both of them get more involved. Alternate care days, supervise medications, or at the very least take care of the paperwork, which made my mother sigh. "I never planned on being a nurse. I have my own life, Marina," Danielle commented. "You're just so good at organizing all this. You're the one with the routine, the files, and all the contact info. I should have expected things would get more complicated." About 7 months after Thomas's late spring accident, I began to realize some things didn't line up. His monthly Valley Community Credit Union statements, which I used to help him file, had stopped being delivered. When I asked my mother about it, she replied that I had switched everything to digital, so there were fewer piles everywhere. I chose not to say anything, but deep down, it unsettled me. As a result, I decided to use the access I'd set up long ago to try logging into the online account one afternoon. My access was refused. I made a call to Valley Community Credit Union. The branch manager informed me that account authorizations had been updated. I was no longer an authorized user. Within that same week, I heard my mother, Evelyn Ellis, on the phone reserving a 10-day evergreen renewal spa. "Just put the deposit on the central fund," she instructed. "Central fund?" I followed up with her about it later. She grinned. "Your father's, Thomas's. We have the legal guardianship document now. It's more convenient." I froze instantly. "Since when?" 2 months ago? We needed it. For making medical calls. Just legal formalities. You never mentioned it to me." My mother just gave a little shrug. "It's all sorted out. There's no issue." Danielle, my younger sister, jumped in. "Don't stress, Marina. We're handling it." But in truth, they weren't. At least, not completely. Everything had been transferred over to them, quietly, through the law, and in full, and I had absolutely missed every sign. By the 9th year, my father, Thomas, was down to 2 rooms. He no longer ventured outside the house. He mostly remained in the den, basking in the gentle afternoon sunlight, with the chair near the window becoming his constant refuge. The yard had grown wild, and there were no more seeds in the bird feeder. His words became fewer, but he always managed to ask about my day when he did speak. I shifted my job to a part-time schedule. Alicia Rowe, the care worker, was only available for 4 afternoons each week. The remaining time fell to me. My mother and my younger sister had faded entirely into the periphery. My younger sister was once more in between employment, but was somehow always unavailable to assist. My mother continually mentioned that arthritis in her hands was holding her back. I eventually quit trying to get them involved. One Wednesday, following a trip to Greenfield Medical Center for what should have been a standard scan, the physician requested that I step into his office. He left the door open behind me. He saw no reason to shut it. "Your father, Thomas Ellis, has late-stage pancreatic cancer," he told me, "and based on our estimates, you should be thinking in terms of months rather than a full year." My father must have recognized it from the look on my face when I returned to the waiting area. I couldn't bring myself to speak. Instead, my father simply took hold of my hand. That evening, I wrote to my workplace and handed in my resignation. No one made a formal mention of it at home. My mother left it alone and asked nothing. My younger sister, Danielle, just remarked, "Wow, that's a decision." But to me, there wasn't really another option. Every subsequent day felt more vivid. I understood there was no time left to lose. I prepared dishes that my father could manage to eat. I took care of his medications, set up his appointments, and read aloud to him when he was too exhausted to keep his eyes open. On one particular night, as I tidied up a drawer in the den, an amber file folder appeared, marked with my name. Inside, there was a note. It was written in his own hand. The script was tidy, slightly unsteady, yet clear enough to read. "If this reaches you, I'm likely already too depleted to speak the words aloud. I want you to have what I've managed to accumulate. While it's not all there is, it carries real importance. Make sure your own needs come first. You've already done far more for me than necessary. With all my love, Thomas." Tucked behind his note, I found a copy of a lease agreement for a unit at the Willows Residences with 2 rooms, located around 30 minutes from the city. The name of the Willows Residences jumped out at me. We had once driven past it on our way to Riverbend Health Center. He had pointed it out to me and mentioned it was a good building, not far from a green space. He'd already put down some money for it. I immediately understood his reasoning. David Kim, the hospice case coordinator who would sometimes take over Alicia Rowe's shifts, had grown to mean more to me than simple compassion. David and I had spent many late nights sitting together on the front porch, sipping coffee from takeaway cups in gentle silence. Though I couldn't define exactly what we were certainly more than mere acquaintances. When my father learned about us, instead of lecturing me, he simply grinned. "You deserve to be with someone who will stick around," he said. And then, while I was immersed in my caregiving duties, he had quietly made plans for our future together. He had penciled a wedding date onto the late spring calendar, paid the necessary deposits, and organized receipts, each item carefully stored in that same amber file folder. He never told my mother, nor my younger sister, only me. The day before he lost the ability to speak, he whispered, "Begin your life. Don't wait to be allowed." I squeezed his hand and nodded in response. Thomas Ellis slipped away peacefully at dawn on Saturday. I was at his side. I had just finished putting fresh sheets on the bed when I noticed his breathing had grown shallow. I stayed close to him, held onto his hand, and waited in silence. He never opened his eyes again. There wasn't any dramatic gasp, no heartfelt final message, just the faintest breath out, and then quiet. I reached out to the hospice number. I also called Alicia Rowe. Afterward, I perched on the edge of the bed for a long time, unmoving and without tears, just allowing myself to take up space. My mother and my younger sister didn't respond immediately. My mother eventually answered on the third attempt. "We're out shopping," she told me. "You'll have to take care of everything." So I did. I made the phone calls, coordinated transportation, processed the death certificate, reserved St. Bartholomew's Chapel, and selected the floral arrangements. Danielle messaged me afterward. "Tell me when the service is. I'll see if I can attend." On the morning of the funeral, I arrived early, arranged the chairs, and welcomed the first guests. My mother arrived late, dressed in a fitted black suit. Danielle showed up after I did, still wearing her sunglasses. Neither of us offered any assistance, but when it was time for the eulogy, my mother went to the podium as if she owned it. She delivered the expected words, speaking of my father's gentle resilience, dedication, and everything he'd given up. I fixed my gaze on the floor, trying not to let her words carve me out inside. After the service, I returned to our home. The house was still filled with the scent of his soap and brewed black coffee. All I wanted was some time to myself. But my mother and my younger sister were already there, sitting in the living room with wine glasses, as though nothing out of the ordinary had taken place. "We have to talk," my mother said. I paused in the entryway, still wearing my dress. "Is it all right if this conversation waits?" "No, it can't," Danielle said, raising a document. "This is an heir agreement," she explained, stating that you agree not to challenge anything regarding the estate. It's really just a technicality." I stayed rooted to the spot. My mother leaned in closer. "We have the legal guardianship document, Marina. We've already spoken to the lawyer. We're set to inherit the house. And as for the remaining money in the central fund, that's already in motion." I glanced at the document, then back at them. "Thomas Ellis had just passed away," I said. "And it's not that we're trying to be heartless," my mother responded, "but these matters tend to move fast." "It's best if you address it now," my younger sister said. "You don't live at the Willows residences anymore. You're getting married soon, aren't you? You already have your own home." I had never mentioned that to them before. I gave no response. My mother let out a sigh. "Marina, please don't make things harder than they already are. We've dealt with enough." I had the urge to protest. I felt like yelling, but rather than doing that, I grabbed a pen from the coffee table and put my signature on the form. Nobody expressed any gratitude. My mother stood up. "You'll need to move out in 2 weeks. We've already gotten in touch with Carolyn Price." I gave a single nod. My younger sister filled her wine glass again. That evening, I packed without a word. I took with me only what was necessary. My father's framed photograph, a pile of his journals, and the amber file folder he'd left for me, went into my things. No one showed up at the door as I made my exit. 5 days after leaving the house, my phone rang. I almost ignored the call. The number was from my childhood home, the house that no longer belonged to me. I answered. My mother's tone was harsh. "Where is it?" I stayed silent. "The funds," she demanded, "from my father's account. They're missing. All of it." "What did you do?" I closed my eyes. "You told me not to contact you again," I answered steadily. "That's irrelevant now. This is an urgent situation. That account contained thousands." "Where is it? You had the legal guardianship document, right?" I reminded her. "You and my younger sister did." "I was never permitted access." "You left the bank book in the drawer," she replied. "But now the money's gone. I never laid a hand on it." There was a pause. Then I heard my younger sister's voice in the background. Ask her again. Ask her where she put it. My mother returned. Marina, this is critical. We made arrangements. I paid deposits. Danielle resigned from her position. We relied on those funds. I hadn't verified the amount before my father passed. Why would I? He hardly ever spent any money. He would simply remain in that room. I paused for a moment. Then I said, You didn't know. There was very little remaining. It felt unthinkable. Actually, it wasn't. I explained everything to her about the Willows residences, Heritage Grove Hall, the down payments, and the letter. David Kim. Danielle snatched the phone. You're making this up. That's not true. You took even more than we ever received. My father made that decision. You weren't present. He understood exactly what he was choosing. My younger sister's voice wavered. So that's all of it. That's what we inherit. A wedding and a bit of money for rent. I guess that's what it was. Did he really believe that put us on equal footing? I didn't say anything. My mother came back to the phone. Her tone had grown softer now. We have nothing left, Marina. I have already paid for the Silver Horizon voyage, and the house needs repairs we can't cover. We're not bringing anything in. We need assistance, just until the situation calms down. You insisted that I would never be part of the family again, telling me to go and never return. That was before. No, that was truly your nature. She offered no response. I hung up and immediately blocked the contact. I never got any further communication from them, at least not directly. Yet news still managed to reach me somehow. Silver Horizon voyage tickets couldn't be reimbursed. My mother had already settled the full amount, confident she'd recover it from the estate. My younger sister had even uploaded pictures featuring suitcases and palm tree emojis on social media. They canceled, yet the funds were irretrievable. They attempted to keep the house, but the plumbing was ancient, the roof required repairs, and nobody wanted to pour money into a property with 2 listed owners and no reserves for renovations. They ended up selling, but failed to meet the market value. It happened quickly, quietly, and for less than my mother had hoped for. When all the fees and the expenses of moving were paid, hardly anything remained. I relocated to Camellia Park Flats on the far side of the city. The place was more compact, lacking both a garden and a porch light. Danielle, my younger sister, started working again. Temporary assignments. I tried to get loans from acquaintances, but most had grown impatient, particularly since I had claimed I would have money soon. Any romance I had been seeking had collapsed. Men no longer reached out to me. My mother, Evelyn Ellis, attempted to resume her part-time job at Turnabout Fines. The role had already been filled, and at her age, finding employment is a struggle. I never replied. There was no reason to. Their circumstances continued to develop with or without my involvement. The only thought I allowed myself was this. It had never been about payback. It was simply the ability to finally leave without remorse. We tied the knot in late spring. The ceremony was simple, with only a handful of dear friends present and no celebration. Heritage Grove Hall, the venue my father, Thomas Ellis, had marked in the pamphlet, nestled behind an oak grove, was where it took place. With a porch that glowed in the evening sun, David Kim stood next to me, just as calm and dependable as always. I chose a plain dress, abandoning any thought of a veil. While every seat was filled, I sensed his presence with me. We decided to display the letter inside a frame right at the entrance of our new place at the Willows residences. The ink around the margins had grown a bit pale, but the words remained strong. Take care of yourself first. You've done more than enough for me. Now and then, when I either head out to work or return late, I linger in front of it for just a moment. He didn't pass down wealth to me. What he left behind was a feeling of calm. And now I wonder if that was his intention from the start. Some people receive houses in their inheritance. Others are given quiet. I used to believe that people who kept to themselves, those left to carry on doing the unnoticed tasks, didn't have stories worth hearing. But maybe that was never the case. Now, I know that's not true. Perhaps I was the person who sorted through my father's belongings entirely on my own. Maybe I ended up being responsible for handling the bills when nobody else was present. It's possible no one acknowledged me, or let me know I was important, and yet I remained. If my place in my own family's narrative has been wiped away, then this is for me. There's no need for me to justify myself. I don't have to offer reasons for leaving or for not returning. However, if there's something I always wanted to hear, just a single word that still lingers in my heart, I can go ahead and write it here.